Hello everyone, welcome to my Session 9 teaching memo and Session 10 introduction. I'm broadcasting this week from beautiful Narragansett Bay in Rhode Island. I'm trying to model how you can go on vacation in the summer and still keep up with your work. I'll be working from the front porch of a beautiful old house just a few minutes from the beach. As always, I'll start with some housekeeping. There are still some revised select response tests that have not been submitted to the discussion board, the revised SR Test DB. If you are one of these latecomers, please consider your group mates and email them a copy of your revised test, as they may have already moved on to the next step of the process. Those of you that have done it, keep checking back to that revised select response test discussion board to see if those latecomers have posted, because they will be panicking and they will need you to take their tests. As I stated, all these discussion boards are pass-fail, and if you submitted it within the session, you received 100 points towards your final select response grade. So all of these discussion boards are going to be averaged in. Naturally, they don't have as much weight as your final select response test, but they're going to be part of that grade. So it's important that you participate in these discussion boards. Remember to use my and your classmates' comments to prepare and write your 3-part analytic summary, which you will submit on the last week in session 12. You now need to upload your revised test to your new group, which you've been doing. Download your group mates test, take them, and then upload them back to the same discussion board. You notice you're all in new groups. This does not affect your discussion board group, so those discussion board groups stay the same. You should give feedback, but it's not mandatory. Also, as I mentioned, check back for latecomers. And I also got an email from Yale wanting to know if you should upload your corrected copies of your group mates test. That's not, I don't think that's necessary. You can do it if you want, but I think that will just kind of add more stuff to that discussion board. There's already enough stuff in that discussion board, but you can if you want. I also mentioned earlier that in the true-false test in chapter 14, there's what I consider a poorly worded question. If you got one wrong and you absolutely feel it was correct, send me an email with your rationale for answering the question the way you did, and I will give you credit. We only will be meeting for 3 more weeks, which means that many of you need to catch up, although most of you are caught up. That's the beauty of this last 3 weeks. I've given you time to write your revised test, to revise it and upload it and make comments on your classmates. So it was a great time, and everybody seems to be caught up. We will excuse me. In the remaining assignments, you can be working ahead, including vocabulary in your own words. I've mentioned that almost every teaching memo, and the 3-part analytic summary, of course, which will be due the last week. Session 9, I'm going to be grading your double entry journals on Popham's test this week, and test prep chapter 14, and the connections you made to all of the test prep and anxiety articles that I shared in course materials over the last 2 sessions. The bottom line is that excuse me, if our students are prepared, they will be confident, which in turn alleviates stress. Confidence plus effective effort equals success, a winning formula. There are also a myriad of pressure-reducing strategies like meditation, breathing, yoga, and other activities we can do to make things much less anxiety-producing. Whether you work in a school that does test prep inappropriately or appropriately, you now know what you should be doing, and there are acceptable ways to prepare your students for the state assessments. Excuse me. I think I'm getting too much fresh air. This topic is so important because so many veteran and new teachers are not aware of the educational defensibility principle, or that there are easy ways to relieve test anxiety. The biggest thing, in my opinion, is your attitude about tests themselves. If you believe strongly that these tests are wrong, biased, don't assess accurately, or otherwise should not be used, you need to be extremely careful not to pass that along to your students. I liken it to elementary teachers who dislike math and pass that dislike on to their students. Unethical, to say the least. Unfortunately, this is often done unconsciously, so be aware of your attitude. Okay, session 10. This week's session deals with the very important excuse me, and last topic, and hot topic in the assessment field, formative assessment and or assessment for learning. Many teachers believe they are doing formative assessment by using typical large group questions and answer strategies. One person answers, the rest of them sit and listen. Au contraire, mon frère. The extent of my French. This session you'll read a short piece entitled The Term Paper Assignment. That's important that you all read that, which most of you will relate to, and on which you should begin your discussion board initial posting. Mr. Jones, who was mentioned in the article, is a typical teacher who does not know how to go about using assessment to enhance learning while it is happening, rather than at the end when it's too late. In this course, I've tried to model formative assessment by providing exemplars, allowing you to use the rubric to grade them, giving you feedback, allowing you to take quizzes twice, etc., etc. You should have no excuse for not knowing how to go about it. Watch the Emily video and make sure you connect to Miss W and how she goes about teaching the writing process. Once you watch that video, you will understand where I got most of my ideas about my grading practices. The discussion board on instructionally oriented assessment or assessment for learning is now open. This is the last discussion board. I expect great connections to POPM and the many articles and course materials in sessions 10, 11, and 12. I think there's only one thing in session 12, and that is a video, a Rick Wormelli video, which I would recommend you watching. Because we have not had a discussion board in several weeks, I'm expecting you to comment early and often. Remember, everyone can get an A+. You also have a quiz this session on Chapter 12 and POPM. This one you can take twice, and there's a hard copy in course materials for this session. There's a video assignment also. You need to watch the video of Rick Stiggins explaining the difference between assessment of and for learning. There's a worksheet that you have to download and fill out and then upload. It's a pretty simple assignment. Almost everyone gets 100, and that's averaged into your discussion board, your final discussion board grade. So another easy A for if you just do it. There are also 3 articles embedded in the discussion board assignment instructions. One is a Rick Stiggins article called Explaining Assessment for Learning. Second is by Doug Reeves, who tells us why it's not good to give zeros. And you'll notice the lowest grade I give is a 50. Many of you probably don't know that because you've never gotten one, but some of you do. And another handout by Ken O'Connor talks about grading practices that distort achievement. This is one of my favorite DBs. I mean, I like a lot of the discussion boards we have, but this one is a good one. I'm looking forward to some heated conversations, especially about grading practices. So I will see you all in 1 week.